Welcome to Trust the Journey, Episode 4. I'm Melanie Curtis.
And I'm Jay Moletsky.
Our mission is to live, laugh, love, and learn together with you.
We're here to create conscious connections, to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust. Trusting the entire journey.
Trusting the whole journey. Even that. Even talking over each other. In this episode, we're talking about being spread too thin, process breakdown, recovery, and communication in breakdown.
And as always, if you get value from the show, please share whenever and however you're so inspired to do so.
Thank you guys so much for being with us. Here we go, Episode 4. All right. Yeah, good topic to cover.
For sure.
Holy smokes. The topic we're wanting to cover today is this idea of spreading ourselves too thin, recovery process breakdown, etc.
Yeah.
I think we all experience that from time to time, especially growth people, growth-minded people who are pressing forward. Like, it's inevitable, I think, that people who are called forward to create and grow experience this kind of breakdown because we're consistently pushing the edges of what we are capable of doing. And we value, at least for me, I value time very highly. So I like to use it all if I can. And so that inevitably leads me to occasionally feeling spread too thin. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find I'm in the same, like, the time has become such a irreplaceable commodity that I know the value of it is just infinite,
Yeah.
right? So when I think, do I want to drive the hour somewhere, an hour back, or could I just skip that and do, 10 minutes either direction? And then I end up with that extra chunk of time I would have spent driving to use for something else, even if it's just sitting on the couch staring at the TV time, then that time for me is incredibly valuable because I know that's the time when I'm going to unplug or when I'm going to decompress and let myself recover at the end of the day or at the end of the week or whatever it might be. Yeah,
Definitely.
I've watched myself become so full, like my days are packed, but very often I look at my days and I find myself realizing, well, I didn't work today. I didn't go to the office today. I didn't do many work-related tasks per se. Like yesterday was a great example. I knocked myself silly. I could barely open my eyes this morning. I was so tired, and falling asleep last night was just utter exhaustion. It's just like the body was just fighting to go down.
Yeah.
And it feels great. It's the best thing to just be truly and, honestly exhausted from a really good day spent. And I did some stuff to take care of myself. I went to a PT session to go and work on healing some physical injuries. And I went and I hung out with a good friend and we exercised and we played outside and we had a really good time out in nature. And then we ended up doing something we didn't plan on doing and we went flying around.
Awesome.
So some fun recreation that filled in and found flow state, spent a few hours in flow where the mind is very, very free and very free from the daily, all the thinking stuff, free from all the clutter and having to process. And it's more in the child playful mind. And then took a nap later. Oh my God, nap is amazing.
Yeah.
And and then I got up from the nap and I'm like, oh, I got to answer a few things. I got to send an email to you. I got to send an email to a couple other people that were asking me stuff. So I did do a couple little work items.
Yeah.
Squeezed them in there and then immediately headed off to yoga and got a yoga class in to stretch out all the tension that I built from playing hard all day.
Yeah.
And a grocery run and dinner.
Yeah.
And, a little quick house cleaning before bed and just organizing. And then you just hit the pillow like kaboom,
Yeah.
And it all gets up and starts again the next morning, like, hey, Mel, hi.
I know. Well, and it's funny. Like I want to acknowledge that because that is something I think that separates. I mean, there's tons that I can acknowledge from your story of your day, certainly, just
Yeah.
the vast variety of things that is in one single day that you just described for your,
Yeah.
of your life, which is pretty cool in itself and totally interesting on its own. I just first want to acknowledge that that's the thing. Like I oddly ended up with a week that is very full. Like I have random friends in town that I'm excited to see, add something like a trip to the city that wouldn't normally occur. I have another thing where I'm, and I'm in a growth phase with my business as well. So I'm committed to doing more things that I wouldn't normally have done before. So I recognize that I'm in a pressing phase, but like, what I want to acknowledge is like, for me, I snoozed. I'm like, for a while this morning, I was really tired myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be so easy to be like, Ajay, I'm just fucking pooped. And I don't know if I'll be high energy. I don't know if I'll feel it. And that's where I think a lot of people break down when they're in a creation process, whether it's creative or whether it's just execution growth or some goal that they're committed to. It's really easy to say, I just kind of want to not do it today. That I think is something really difficult for people and myself as well. And I like to acknowledge it because it is hard to say, no, I'm going to stay committed to our goal here in this particular creative process and goal that we have, but other things as well. Like I feel good like that I got on a Facebook Live yesterday, even though I was smoked from doing a photo shoot with my friend, which makes me oddly uncomfortable because I like to put the focus on other people. It's difficult for me to be the center of attention, which sounds weird as a personal brand. But so I was pretty exhausted from that. But I still was like, I'm going to do a Facebook Live because I'm committed to that goal and being of service in that way, even though it wasn't optimal. It was a lower energy share. But I'm like, just doing it at all helps me grow and go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I could have done a little this or that to help up my energy or whatever. So all of those iterations are so valuable, even when they're not optimal.
Absolutely. The commitment thing is what you're touching on there. I really feel like that when you make a decision to press forward on something that you've set yourself a goal, you've established what it is that you want to accomplish with your day. And the trick is that we get into our day and we often forget about our bigger picture of like what we laid out for ourselves. And it's ironically the dichotomy of life is that everything is always trying to be present and trying to be now and just trying to be aware of how I'm feeling right now. Where do I want to be right now? What am I doing right now? But also aware of what you want in your life as a whole and not letting, an emotional state or some fatigue or,
Yeah.
whatever the challenge that may be in front of you at this moment distract you from your bigger picture mission of what you really truly want in your life.
Yeah.
As well, you're trying to be present, right? You're trying to be, I'd like to be here, all of me, fully present is what you often hear. Try and be fully present. Try to make sure that you're able to give everything you have to this moment, to be here right now. And everything you have doesn't have to be the best you ever are.
Yes.
Like this is a very key thing. Like I would say, just relating it to some life experience, like if I look back at a period of time of training and say, okay, how often did I train and how often did I ever achieve like the best that I was? Like if I did 100 training runs, how many of them scored at my optimal performance? And it's probably going to be a couple, if
Right.
ever. It may be zero.
Right.
It could be that I do hundreds and hundreds of training runs and none of them actually are showing my optimal performance. They may be very close to, or they may be
Right.
very far away from, but I'm still present the whole time. I'm still putting in everything I have, even if it means that my performance is terrible at times.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really easy to be the person sitting and looking at someone else doing something and saying, oh, I could do that way better.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that
That
obviously
gallery.
is the thing. And maybe they're right, but the reality is that the people who are actually in action are who are creating, so I call people to be in action in the face of that desire for optimal performance or perfection. It goes into the perfectionist limiting thought that blocks people in action. Like in 4-way and training, if we talk about the training stuff, as when I was coaching 4-way, more regularly as a skydiving coach, I would get these newer jumpers who wanted to do a new team, and they wouldn't want to participate in like the competitions, like the local comps or go to nationals or this and that. And I always encourage those people. I was like, no, you want to do that. Like, you don't compete when you're ready.
Yeah.
You compete to gain experience, to learn, to understand what it's like to be in a higher pressure situation and learn what it's going to take for you to find your peak flow state or your optimal mental state and physical state to be performing as best as you can in those higher pressure moments.
As well as learn how you're going to react to your inefficiencies or your failures, right? Because you're going to flounder and you're going to flop and you're going to completely, fumble and exit, or you're going to do something where you made this great plan, you've prepared yourself, you're about to commit to whatever, presentation or, project that you said, okay, this is what I'm working on right now, and you go to deliver it and it goes boom and you fall flat on your face, right? And then how are you going to react when you hit that situation? You have to go down that road to experience those failures, to be okay with getting back to your feet, dusting yourself off, and continuing forward. Yeah.
Totally. The first nationals I ever competed at with the 4-way team, my very first ever nationals, we prepared, we did the whole training plan, we had coaching, the whole thing. And of course, we have a high attachment to the outcome. We want to do really well. We're in this, major stage in this sport. We're very excited, as is totally normal and understandable and great, So anyway, we were planning that we understood, as young people, we understood that at nationals, they do 6 rounds on the first day and 4 rounds on the second day. Cool. So we can plan for the 6 rounds. And for whatever reason, that's no longer really the case, but for whatever reason, that nationals, they said, oh, we have daylight, we're going to do round 7. And my team had a fucking meltdown. It was so, I look back on it and I laugh so much, but no joke, we completely fucking melted down to the point where we went and did the jump, but people were taking wrong grips in the door. It was just one of the worst skydives, I think, of our whole career. But what an awesome learning moment of oh, okay. So we prepared, we had this very specific, we can perform under these circumstances expectation, versus really being open and going, no, we have skills to navigate whatever. We just really didn't have those skills at that point in our skydiving careers. It was just funny.
Yeah. Yeah. That's process breakdown, right? That's when you've set yourself up a system, a way that you're going to manage your circumstance. And you're like, all right, this is what I have to deal with in front of me. I've kind of sussed out the direction that I'm heading in. I think if I break it into these bite-sized chunks, I'll be able to chew each one of them into a small enough piece that I'll be able to manage the circumstance. And you set up your chain of events. And obviously this happened to me last week twice, right? where I'm like, okay, as long as I put everything into these places, I can just follow the order of operations through each day, and I'll be fine. I have everything handled. I'm good. And as it turns out, things did not go quite as planned. You know, there was a little change, like one more round added. There was
Yep.
one little switch where, oh, the weather's going to be bad this day, and so tomorrow we're going to do things a little different, and all of a sudden the whole rest of the week comes apart because everything was, for me, in this, you know, ironic example, was all put in place by that like cornerstone. So if you pull out the one piece, everything else falls,
Yep.
you know, and it's all reliant upon each other. And the big piece of this goes back to where we started the conversation with, which is talking about time and time management, right? Saying, okay,
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
time's so vitally important to me. My week, I have so many personal goals. I really want to develop myself and my life into having these elements in them. And I'm going to be dedicated, so ultimately dedicated,
Yeah.
so dedicated that I barely have time to do the things, the basic necessities in my life. And
Exactly.
then when one thing comes and messes up the whole program, you find yourself completely failing, you
Right.
know. So
Yep.
for the viewers who don't know, last week Melanie texted me and she's like sending me messages, okay, what are we going to talk about? And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm cool, let's talk about this, cool, these are the topics from last week. And she's like, okay, ready to go? And I'm like, no, that's tomorrow. And she's like, no, that's right now. I'm like, oh, damn it. And then
It's like,
even worse is that it happened later that week again for the second time. And I mean, I know we're both the kind of people that do not like to go back on our word or miss an appointment or let anybody else down when we promise we'll be somewhere. And it's so gut wrenching to realize that you've spread yourself too thin, or that you've gone and overbooked yourself, or completely just did not remember something that you
Mhm.
said you would do, especially when it's something you wanted to do. It's
Totally.
something that you've created for yourself to say, this is important to me. I want to do this. I came up with the idea. It's not even somebody calling me and say, well, you do this for me. It's me saying, I want to do this for myself.
Yep.
And then you realize that you overbooked yourself, and now you're having to pick up the pieces rather than celebrate victories and move forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think ultimately when that type of thing happens in general, like, it's like, I know, for example, in the case of the scheduling breakdown, this example this week, like, there's no part of me that expects people that I care about and work with to be not human, like to not have fallible moments. And I have certainly done exactly what you've done many times over the course of my career and life, duh, we're all human. Like, that's totally cool. I think what makes that it totally like a thing is that there's so much respect. You know what I mean? Like, my understanding of your respect of me, our time, and this project that we're working on together is very solid. Like, it's solid. So like, you missing an appointment or having a scheduling breakdown in your own life one week doesn't, to me, speak of a lack of respect. It
Yeah.
just shows a bit of your humanness. So like, it would be different if someone consistently did that. And you know what I mean? Like, if someone's consistently disrespectful of time and scheduling and never makes efforts to, acknowledge where, oh, I'm so sorry, I respect you and your time. Like, if there's none of that, then you can go, well, I wonder if this person does respect scheduling and time to the level I do. And it would make a person question, you know what I mean? So I think how it works is that you acknowledge that stuff and you clearly respect me and the time and what we're doing. So like, that's what anytime I've screwed up with a client, which I have plenty of times,
Never.
I, to the hilt, respect that time. Like, fucking A. So anytime that's happened, I'm always like, I make certain to really say that, to say, I'm so sorry. I so respect you and your time and our work. Like, and just really express that again, because that's really what I think matters. You know, if that's there, people are certainly allowed to be human. And I would hope people in my life would be accepting and loving of me and my humanness as well when it comes up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on point with that comment. It's it becomes pretty obvious when you're as you travel down the road of life, when you're encountering circumstances where people are disrespectful and they, regularly arrive late or miss something, or don't quite value your time or the time of the others that you're involved in something with, whether it be work or family, or what other circumstance you find yourself engaging other people. Those times are the times when you have to start to then question whether you're going to continue operating under the same circumstances, allowing yourself to be the victim to that
Right.
arrangement, or whether you choose to change how it operates.
Right.
First acknowledge the circumstance, see if you can address the problem directly with the person, and say, hey, can we deal with this, because this is what's occurring. And
Yep.
that this respect, it starts to dig at the foundation, right? Like, what
Mhm.
happens when that occurs on a regular basis is you start getting that feeling of disrespect, and you start losing respect for that person, because you feel as though that's what's coming towards you, and it undermines whatever you may be working on together. It's really important whenever you encounter those little inefficiencies that we may have in our lives, because we each
Yeah.
have our things that we may have, regular failures with. So
Yeah.
a
Yes.
good being late is a primary example. So missing something, completely blowing a schedule, that's something entirely different. But say always being 5 minutes late.
Right.
Always being 5 minutes late says you're unprepared, or that you don't value the other people's time as much.
Hmm.
And it sets this tone of disrespect to people that you're working with. And then what you get that
Yeah.
in return, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you start off on a bad foot.
It creates a culture of that. And that's the thing too, is that like, we just happen to be in this shared mindset around time, because not everybody respects or values time in the same way.
Mm,
Doesn't mean they don't respect what I stand for, or what, you know what I mean? Like I'm not even to say like time is the only way to show respect and feel respect, and like have that. I just personally experience that as a communication of respect because of my belief that time is so valuable. But, I definitely know other people in the world that don't feel the same way. That
absolutely.
their culture is like showing up 5 minutes late is no big deal, or whatever. And that's fine. It's more just like, it's just kind of, that's a tough one for me to reconcile for sure, because of my strong belief in how valuable time is and how I use that as a show of respect.
Mm. Yeah, I guess why it was strumming a chord with me personally, and I feel some like, there's like this inner agitation as we talk about this a little bit. There's a few areas in life, in my own life, where I find myself feeling disrespected, or feeling, this like kind of poof, where I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, the people that I'm doing this with don't value the project or the time that we're dedicating to work on this together at the same level.
Mhm.
So do I really want to put myself in at my
Right.
100%, when I know that, or when I perceive that the people that I'm engaging with aren't valuing it the same way? And I guess this is a big piece about judgment, or about how we measure value of self
Mhm.
versus others, and valuing whatever we might be working on together at that time. So I guess when we say that, like, if we're just spending time relaxing, or if we're spending time working on a work goal or a family goal, or whatever it is, a team goal,
Yeah.
anything where you're in a group of other people, and we're dedicating our time to that. If some of us are in what appears to be at our measurement of 100% and others are in at their measure of 100%, it
Right.
still might look like this, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so you get this perception where I'm like, oh, but I'm putting in more than you. And the person's like, no, well, I'm putting in all I ever said I was going to. And they may not
Right.
line up. And it creates a very challenging circumstance, you know?
Yes.
And that I've seen this, I guess the reason why I'm feeling it is, you know, I'm involved in a lot of different working groups, this just being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that spreading yourself too thin or not being fully dedicated thing has come up many, many times over the years in different circumstances, and always wanting to choose people to be involved with that are able to assess and measure your contribution or who you are, what kind of level of commitment you're putting to a project, so that I like being involved with people who are able to accurately assess that, so
Yeah.
that they can see what you actually are offering, or how much time, how much energy, how much of yourself
Yeah.
is going towards it, so that they're accurately metering how much is necessary
Mm-hmm.
for it to feel like there's respect in the communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating, I think, too, because people are so different,
Yeah.
and certainly good people, quote unquote, are always trying to do their best and do right by other people, I would imagine. If I had to be like, well, what's a good person? It's, that probably would come up in their qualities. So as a result, like, when that like dissonance is discovered, it can feel weird because like they think they're doing, you know, and it's not even wrong. There's no judgment around this. It's more just like, I'm totally just giving it. I'm doing the best, and I'm doing what I think is right and best for you and for this project or whatever. You know what I mean? And so like getting to be like, oh, and having that understanding of, well, like this is, and talking through that without judgment. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I think when we try to meet in the middle with different things, like sometimes people can rise up from having a breakthrough around like how actually committed a person is to a project, or they weren't connected to maybe a bigger vision, but then they get connected to it such that they're excited newly or in a different way, in a different level. But yeah, that requires a communication and an openness and a trust and respect again, but non-judgment in that share and ability to speak to this gap, without it being like a problem, but rather being an opportunity to say, oh, can we get each other to the same page? Or do we decide to say, oh, well, this actually isn't what we want like we thought. Also, no judgment, but a decision is made to part ways.
Yeah, what you're just hitting on there was a shared vision or alignment of vision.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really big piece in the equation. We've spoken about Shannon before. He's one of my business partners, teammates, a coach, mentor to both us and many more. Exceptional individual. And one of the big things he's constantly pushing for in any circumstance that we find ourselves looking to create this environment is a shared vision, a mutually agreed upon vision, mission, goal, is where when you do this, when you take the time to kind of chew through what each person's true ideas are of what the end project is going to look like, when we get a better understanding of like, oh, well, I see this as making 100% of what I want it to be, and the other person's, well, actually, I see this making 100%. The more we can just communicate that,
yeah,
the more that we start to understand the differences there, the more we can figure out whether maybe this is too much or maybe this is too little and this is going to meet in the middle somewhere,
Yeah.
or maybe this person's overshooting the goal and it's not going to ever be that because it's unrealistic, you know.
Yep.
I'm never to blame for that, trust me. And maybe this person's, you know, energy or interest level isn't ever going to meet kind of the
Right.
median of the group, and they're going to go, you know what, this project really isn't for me because I just don't care about this that much.
Don't
It's not
feel it.
something
Yeah.
that I love to do, that I'm super stoked on creating with you people. And I've been that guy too, where I'm like, you know what, I think I'm going to walk, because if I go do something else, then I'll be really truly vested in that. And I think that's where this is all coming back to communication. It's all coming back to being honest about
Yeah.
it, taking the time to share, the time to put in place a process and the space to allow for the communication to take place,
Mm-hmm.
so that that mutual goal, mutual vision can happen together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing too. Like the part of the thing, or one of the things we were mentioning was like, how do we choose that? Like, how do we choose who to be around, who to partner with? Because like sometimes, and that's the thing, like there is a bit of a courageous leap in terms of when we decide to work with anyone, because things show themselves through the process. Like we can't possibly know everything in terms of its ability, like the likelihood of its success, or how a person's going to show up and challenge, or what their communication style is, or what their value of time actually is. Like, we don't see that stuff until we're in something. And so it's can be a scary thing, because there always is a likelihood of like, this might not work. And that's not pleasant to have to part ways.
Mm.
It's, I think, something that if we acknowledge that potential is there, and we aren't afraid of that when we go into something working with someone else, we can choose to align with people that seem to have those shared core values. Because like for me, where do I source consistent energy and motivation for stuff is from my core values, like from contributing to the world and being of service, and creation and creativity and self-expression, courage. Like those things motivate me. So projects and people that embody those values tend to inspire me. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit different than the process of the actual literal execution inside of a team or project, like the way that you were describing, Shannon, and how you guys work to get the vision on the same page. Like that is a part of the very nuts and bolts process that is, I think, different than you and Shannon going, yeah, we're creating a team that's going to be the best parachute piloting team in the world, and we're going to do XYZ or whatever you thought at the beginning. Like I acknowledge both sides, because you can have one in the vision, but you can have breakdown in the process, and you can have a process that seems to work really well, but then lose it on the vision and lose energy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I wanted to mention a couple things that kind of stuck out to me, or bringing bubbling thoughts to the
I love
surface.
it.
One of them is choosing people to engage with that inspires you. And so when we're talking about this, you're like, oh, what am I going to offer this circumstance? I like being the weak man on the team. Like there's no better position to be in than to be the worst member, at least from my point of view. Because
I take that as like instant compliment. Like, what? Like, oh God.
It's a great position to be in. Like, this is one of the things that one of my coaches told me years and years and years ago, is that if you're the worst person on the team, that's a huge compliment, because the people on the team see your potential, and they see that even though you have a lot of skill development to do, or you have a long road ahead of you, that you're going to come up to their level. And alternatively, when you're on that position of being the weakest person there, you've chosen to put yourself in an environment with people around you that are achievers, that do well at what they do, and that you feel that you're going to learn a lot, you're going to absorb a lot, you're going to have these role models around you that are going to set the road ahead for you, and people that you can have mentorship from that are going to help, boost your skills and your energy and your excitement level, and make the challenge really that a challenge. Yeah.
For sure.
Oh,
Agreed. I mean, there's a lot of energetic motivation and support in simply being believed in. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like I feel excited to work with someone like you who I respect and admire, and also feel like I see a call to deeper conversation and growth and sharing that this expression, like for the sake of our own growth, but also the growth of other people and contribution to the world in this form, like that makes me go, shit, yeah. Like I could sit here and jam by myself on a Zoom call. It would not even remotely be the same thing. So like for me, it feels like a very much like an opportunity, to create in a way that is literally not possible by myself. Like it's super exciting and cool to me to be doing this.
Yeah. I think the great value of the team environment is something that is often understated.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, my career choice as an athlete was in an individual sport. I
Right.
flew high performance parachutes as an individual competitor. And so when it came to the time in competition, it was I who relied solely upon my sense of being, my experience, all my training, all of the stuff for me to perform those actions and deliver. Whether I'm going to win or lose does not depend on my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
But who I am becomes that because of the time in the team environment.
Totally.
And one of the great strengths learned from this time in skydiving and as a competitive athlete there, with being on teams for such a long time, is how valuable it can be to immerse yourself into this group and to let yourself learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to relate this back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and creating a shared vision or mission. And so recently we held our instructor forum at Flight One, which is our education company. We teach people how to fly parachutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so every couple of years, we get all of our instructors together, and we sit down in a room for a week together, and everybody shares all their experience, and we go through all of our curriculum, and we talk about all of our how well everything's going, and we rewrite and we rework and remold everything we do to continue developing and changing from that collective experience. And one of the exercises that we did, and I have to give credit to our organizer Brian Vasher for putting this together, because such a powerful process, is we spent a little time where we broke into individual small groups, and we made a small list of what we thought our instructors should look like. And that's not just like the physical outward appearance, like if you take a photograph, what should they look like? It
Right.
was creating an idealized concept of what a Flight One coach should be. What should they deliver? What, when you dream up your perfect
Yeah.
coach, what does that mean? What's their character like? What are their mannerisms like? How do they deliver the, like? And so in these little subgroups went and created this. And what you find is that when you all come back together and you look where the commonalities is, that most everybody has the same ideas. The
Mm-hmm.
ideas overlap a lot. And so you're able to take that like 70 or 80%, which is already in alignment, and highlight it and just
Yeah.
immediately throw it on the board and say, okay, we've got these 70 or 80% of things where everybody thinks, they should be rather athletic. They should
Yeah.
be well spoken. They should be well dressed. They should have good hygiene. They should all be wearing the appropriate uniform. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
we're like, wow, look, everybody feels and agrees upon this stuff right away. And
Cool.
so there's your immediate alignment of vision. And when you
Nice.
get to the next 20 or 30%, that remainder, that's where things deviate a little bit. And different groups have different ideas about the little nuances or little specialities. And it comes from culture, it comes
Yeah.
from previous experience, it comes
Mhm.
from that kind of personality piece of it, you know,
Yep.
whether people are strongly flavored to their own, say, uh, you know, savvy way of just delivering something with a lot of flair and a lot
Yeah.
of personal touch, or whether they're very good at using technology, or whether they're,
Yeah.
you know, quite good at engaging the audience through comedy or
Mhm.
through, you know, probing questions to kind of get everything interactive. And
Yep.
so you get all these little pieces that complement the greater picture. And what you find when you isolate that little chunk is that most people agree on all that stuff too. That
Cool.
there's very little that is actually a point where somebody would say, I don't like this,
Yeah.
you know. And the value of the process of simply taking the time to evaluate process and allowing each of the people involved to take ownership in the creation of that, that's
Yes.
huge.
So
It's
huge.
so important to say, you know
As
what,
opposed to being told what to do.
exactly, we
Yeah.
didn't say, not once have we said this is what your instructor should look like. We
Right.
said, what should our instructors look like? And
Absolutely.
our instructors have decided what our instructors should look like, and guess what, they look better than we wanted them to look, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because it's
Oh,
been created mutually, you know.
yeah, that's a huge deal. I mean, that's again, like fostering collaboration is it's very telling as well. You know, like having these experiences is the way that we see how people are, you know, see what matters to them, how they show up in a collaborative environment, who contributes, who doesn't. Not to say that anything's theoretically right or wrong. Again, genuinely non-judgmental, but more in that observatory way. Like anything that occurs is simply information for us to say, you know, what does this mean for me? How does this affect what I'm working on? And I say I, but meaning like if we're assessing who, going back to the more individual level of the question of who do we want to surround ourselves with and why, it's like that type of data collection without judgment, but in mere like in a goal of illuminating our own core callings, our own core values, and what we want in terms of how people are with us. You know what I mean? And do they care in the same way? And we learn that by simply being and engaging with other people and witnessing what they do. You know, so it's cool actually. And certainly you could have said, this is this is the how you're going to be. Like
Yeah.
everyone needs to be like this. And you know what? I bet you a lot of people would resist that at some point. They would be like, fuck, man, this is like dictatorship. Just boss man, big brother now, whatever. You know what I mean? Like that those collaboratively minded people who are excited to be a part of a vision would no longer be inspired. So I give you credit for saying we're going to take this collaborative approach because that's how we want to be. That's
Yeah.
what we believe in. We want our people to contribute. We might not think of everything. They have amazing minds. We respect their mind. We respect their experience. And so we want to engage them and actually hear what they have to say. Like, that's so awesome.
It's going round and round here, where we'll keep coming back to the idea of surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be learning from and wanting to be on a team with, or wanting to be
Yeah.
on a project with. And so this same process, what it's going to do is it allows the person or people in the room who might find themselves going, well, I'm kind of the black sheep, like I don't really agree with this stuff, or it doesn't make sense to me, they're going to find themselves not wanting to participate. And
Right.
that's going to be a healthy process, because when you find yourself not having alignment with goals that you see are not being dictated upon you, but are the mutual goals of a group, and that those are being created by the group,
Yeah.
if you don't find yourself wanting to participate, then you can say, good, I see that this isn't for me. I'm going to have to take a pass and let
Yeah.
it go by and move on to something else. And I've seen the same thing in my own experience inside the same groups of people, you know,
Mhm.
where the project or the task is different, and we're saying, okay, this is what we're going to work on, and we get to a point and I put up my hand, I'm like, I'm out. It's
Yeah.
not something I'm really into. And I think this is one of the things that I did want to touch upon, which is saying yes less, right?
Yeah.
Saying yes to
Ah,
less to things that you don't really want in your life because they're not in line with your own personal goals. And that allows you to say yes more
hmm.
to the things that you really do want in your life. So
Yeah.
the when I say no, I'm not available, which is so hard to do because people ask, it's money on your table, it's food on your table, it's going to pay the rent, or it's going to do whatever. And like, I could say yes to this opportunity that's in front of me, where I know the end result is something that I think, or I've been practicing for years to tell myself that I really want, when in true reality, what I really want is that day off so that I can go and pursue something else in my life that I've been craving, that I really want to go after. And I haven't allowed myself the space or the time dedicated to that to truly pursue it. So saying yes less to the things that you would typically say yes to,
Yeah.
and saying yes more to the things that you truly want in your life.
Yeah, and that can be a tough thing to uncover for
Oh,
ourselves too,
hard.
and it's so understandable, right? Especially when it comes to work or something that does put food on the table, like, and even just things like framed from a life experience perspective. Like for me, I highly value life experience. I highly value growth, and I tend to experience I tend to feel and experience new experiences as this really positive thing.
Yeah.
Even like shitty experiences that suck and hurt and whatever, I frame that as like, yes, I've had a new life experience, so it's very easy for me to say yes to things just from that very, very broad scope. Does that make sense? So like that's from a
Totally.
more positive frame. Like if I think about it like from the fear frame of like I have to say yes to this work because I need to pay the rent. Like that's legit as well, saying yes to things we don't necessarily want to do, or or the life experience frame of like, yay, I get to have a new experience, but it's not considered, it's not actually put into those more clarified directions and goals, so like, yeah, I could spend my time doing lots of great shit all the time,
Mm-hmm.
like I could say yes to every single person who comes to New York City and see them, and then I would literally be exhausted all the time, so it's like, it's tough because I love people, I love my friends, like when they come here, I'm like, I want to make memories with them. Like that is such a thing. I want that. So it's like deciding between this superly high, amazingly wonderful thing. It's like a good problem to
Mm-hmm.
have to say no to all these amazing things because we're so clear on what we value. So it's a little bit different than what you're talking about in terms of saying I'm ready to move forward from this chosen way to spend time, whether it's like for me saying no to skydiving work. Like I do very, very little skydiving work anymore because I had that experience that you described where I just felt like I wanted to do other things. And so it required courage from myself. Like I had to cultivate a commitment to saying no to those things for that purpose.
Yeah.
Even though I was like, still like, oh, am I going to lose everything I worked for 20 years if I say no? Like working through all of that stuff that wanted me to keep saying yes to that stuff that I was no longer as fully called to do.
I totally identify with that. It's such a huge thing, especially when you tie to it the resource generator, like when you
Yeah.
are the most familiar with a reliable source of income from a particular line of work, trying to let yourself break free of it to and unknown is
Yeah,
incredibly scary, right? It's the
totally.
thing where you're like, well, am I going to say no to, this period of work when I'm going to then dedicate my time to some more me time, some other
Hmm.
projects that aren't for sure going to make any money, who knows
Right.
what they're going to be. And then I don't know if I'm going to be able to take care, this is all really questionable stuff, and
Complex.
it's so challenging at times. So I think the big thing in there is some level of balance, right? It's about
Yeah.
being, doing a logical assessment, stopping and just stepping back and saying, okay, well, what do I really need to factor in here? Not just blindly charging forward in any whoa direction or
Yep.
no direction, like
Yep.
either one of those is not good. What you want to do is go, okay, how much resources do I really need, to make sure that I cover my commitments? And what does that mean as far as how much time I have to allocate towards resource generation? And
Right.
how much time does that leave me? And then if it says, so here's where I find myself with in the exact same scenario you just suggested in the recent weeks, when friends are like, hey, we should go out for dinner. I'm like, I don't think I can do that right now because it's going to cost me a bunch of money.
Hmm.
I love going out with my friends. I look
Totally.
forward to seeing, I may not see them for another year or years because
Hmm.
of the travel all the time. But if I go out for dinner and I spend $100 at dinner, well, I'm going to lose that evening that I would have dedicated towards a project that I had prioritized for myself.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to be down on the resource that I spent my time generating with the other period of time. And now I don't have the resources to
Hmm.
pay, my committed bills. And so then I find myself in this endless black hole,
Yep.
so I have to say no to something, or I have to say yes less. If we
Hmm.
don't want to be negative, if we want to keep it a positive yes, then I'm just going to say yes less often to dinner. I'm going to keep some balance. I'm going to go out
Right.
one night a week. One
Right.
night a week, I'm going to go socialize with some friends. I'm going to get some good quality time with some good people, but I'm also going to try and maximize it. So what I'll do is, instead of saying yes to 3 friends through the week and going out for dinner 3 times, I'm
Hmm.
going to say, hey, why don't we all meet up on Friday? And maybe I'll get 2 out of the 3 together. And then
Yep.
we can do one evening out. I get the other 2 nights of the week to work on personal projects or just rest and sleep if
Yep.
that's what I need,
Totally.
or work on physical maintenance of the body, whatever priority needs to take that place, and try and compartmentalize and compress those into truly valuable uh, investment return situations. So if I'm going to
Yeah.
go out and spend that few hours, I get to hang out with a bunch of my friends. We get some good quality time together. And the
Yep.
other 2 nights of the week, I get to go to yoga, or I get to get that extra couple hours of sleep that I really and truly needed after kicking my own butt the days before.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all a process, I feel like, like it's cool that you're looking for solutions to be able to still have those things that you care about, aka I want time with friends. What's a way to optimize that, you know and for me, like, the skydiving work example is a good one for me because I definitely pendulumed on that, like, uh working so much, burning out completely, and then saying, okay, I'm done for a long time. And I just, nothing, like, really just, but like, not like in a like bad way, but in a full acknowledgement of self and full acknowledgement of, like, I have been fucking lying to myself that I have wanted to do all this in crazy intense work. Like, and it was more about lifestyle and stuff. Like, so it's never really been the skydiving. Like the skydiving itself is always very fun to me. The social time is always very fun to me. I always enjoy people because I love people. Flying and skydiving is always in the moment very fun to me. But there was, for me, a process of uncovering, well, why is it that I'm in such resistance to this now? Is it because I'm ready for new life experiences and growth in other areas? Yes. Does that mean I want to do no skydiving work ever? I don't know. Is it because I only want to do the sort of online coaching that I now do with my online group? Maybe. I don't know that either. So, like, the point is, what I'm trying to share in this share is that I've been in a longer term process to answer that question for myself about skydiving work, because it was something that it was so like such a big part of my life for so long, something I did love a lot, something that does contribute to my resources if I were to say yes. I've said no to lots of stuff, and that's good. I feel good about that. But then I was like, well, are there ways that I might want to continue to do this in a limited fashion? And so I started to explore that question for myself, and I'm still in that inquiry. But why I bring this up is that this week or last week, Pam Manos from Skydive Orange reached out to me to ask if I would come and organize at one of their events.
Me too.
And yeah, right. So I love Pam. I love Skydive Orange. I've had great times there. I have a lot of love and respect for the place. I'm happy to, I like going back there would be no problem for me. I like that place and that community. So that's from a values aligned perspective of who I would want to work with. I'm cool with that in the skydiving realm. So I didn't initially respond to her message, but because I wanted to give myself some space to consider it, even though kind of right away my response in myself was like, no, not doing it. You know what I mean? Because I've pretty committed to saying no to skydiving work now. Like I've been pretty consciously, firmly committed to saying no as a saying yes less goal, as a I'm putting time in other areas. So anyway, I consider it. I forget to respond, by the way, speaking of lack of integrity and like a breakdown in system. Like that was a perfect example where, I get a Facebook message. I'm like, yeah, I'll respond. I forget to put it into my to-do list system and it's lost and I don't respond to her. Mm-hmm. So she reaches out to me and writes me a text and said, hey, just following up, want to make sure you got my message, the whole thing. And what I ended up doing was I basically said, I decided in my mind, like, well, what would get me to say yes to this? Like, is there any scenario in which saying yes to this would actually align for me now? And so I thought about how much I would want to charge. And I thought about what was, now that I have space from it, what was actually causing me pain in doing it before? And what I'm exploring now is that I feel called in skydiving to be more of an example, leading by a more relaxed example. Because I used to be that intense as fuck person, did zillion jumps a day, tried to find everybody on the drop zone genuinely in love to want to help them. And I'm like, no, I can't do that anymore. That's too much for me now. But if you are open to me spending more time on the ground, caring more about a relaxed ground time, the connection with other human beings, making fewer jumps, if you are okay with that, and still with the day rate, if that's okay, you're not going to expect old Melanie Curtis that you can be cool with this new way I'd like to organize skydiving, then I would be happy to do it. And she was very supportive of that. So I'm excited because I'm looking forward to having that experience with a different approach and seeing if I still feel the same way leading up to it and after it. So it's another iteration for me to say, do I want to continue doing skydiving work in a new way, or do I really want to just not do it anymore? So I'm like, I just won't know unless I make these sort of subtle changes as I define how I want to do it or not. That was a long-winded story, but I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, we're very much mirroring each other in a number of these ways. I found myself much the same way last year, made the decision to increase my rates because I simply did not want to dedicate as much time to daily one-on-one coaching, which has become, I could fill my schedule with something that is it's very productive for the individuals. I put a lot of time and energy into it. It's
Totally.
exhausting. I come
Yeah.
out of it when I turn the key and walk out at the end of the day. When I get home, I do not have more energy left to put towards anything. So my
Yep.
day is done. And so every other project on my list gets pushed to the side. And
Exactly. And those costs are considered in this type of decision making, because you've had that experience. That's super valuable stuff. Because I also actually said this to Pam. I was like, this is partly why this is how I'm doing it, is because of the effects it has on my life coaching business and my life experience. Like it's a thing. I'm just being very transparent because that's how I roll. And I'm also 100% cool with if people don't want to pay or have the new version of how I want to do it. That's totally okay with me, genuinely. Like there are younger organizers out there that want to be, fuck yeah, go jump every single load if they can. And that's just, I'm cool to acknowledge that's not me anymore.
Well, the thing is too, that when you get to a point like where you're at or where I'm at with our careers in the given industry, say is skydiving, and it doesn't matter what the industry is, of course, you know, if you have 15 or 20 or what's now becoming almost 25 years into this, when somebody is paying for your daily rate, they're not paying for your day, they're paying for your years, right? And
Totally.
it's not like, I heard a great description the other day and they said, oh, doctor, you diagnosed that patient in 5 minutes. How can you charge that much? And like, it didn't take me 5 minutes. It took me 50 years of practice, you know,
Totally.
to be able to know how to recognize what that is in an instant. And this is a big piece of it. You know, when you have your younger, higher energy person who wants to come in and just go full throttle with lots of quantity, the difference is quantity versus quality, right? Mm-hmm. And less is often more.
Yeah.
A few jumps a day or less time spent, less trying to do repetition or trying to, you know, just fill space, and more time spent really specifically developing key areas. You know, that's what it really comes down to. And I think this is kind of the mirror. We're mirroring each other quite wonderfully here. And
well, and this is the shared experience of this career. You know, I always feel so supported anytime I talk to anybody who's been a professional in the sport of skydiving or professional athlete in general. It's who educates, and it's an interesting life. But to be respectful of time, my friend, I will say we can talk about that another day. Yeah. But thank you for your time. Good stuff.
Great talking to you, Melanie. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being with us, for listening, and for being a part of the Trust the Journey family. Another episode in the books, yo. Please tweet, share, post, email, all of that stuff. Share however you are inspired or with anyone you think this show might help.
And next time on episode 5, we're going to be talking about taking the first steps, about comparison, and about never being or feeling ready.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you guys so much for being with us. As always, we love you. And remember, keep laughing, keep loving, and keep trusting the journey.